Can you tell us what day it is and where we are?
Yeah, today is June 8th, on a Saturday. We are in Lafayette, where I reside with my wife, Rawlings Avenue, which is on the north side of Lafayette.
What's your full name?
Larry Lee Vanderweiler.
Did you have any nicknames when you were young?
Well, it's been Vandy, which it's kept. People that I've known for a long time or gone to high school with, grade school, it's Vandy, and it works. Hopefully it's a term of endearment, but yeah, Vandy's it.
What were your parents' names?
Okay, John and Onita.
How would you describe your mom?
How would I describe my mom? I think she was very pretty, if you will, very caring and loving. I was an only child, so she was that way throughout. She died at 54, so we lost her too early. But and I always say she's a very faith-filled individual, and kind of passed some of that on to me.
And how would you describe your dad?
Hard worker. I have a blue-collar worker. He worked for my grandpa McKibben that I had mentioned. They had a fleet of trucks, and in the winter they sold coal. Dad was, again, just a hard worker, very honest. Like some in the old days, a lot of people were like that. And one that, again, he loved me and showed it. He died at 44, unfortunately, so he's been gone for a long time too, and I miss him.
What was it like growing up as an only child?
Depending on who you ask, but you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
The way I couch it is I was spoiled, but not rotten. And anyone can feel free to disagree with that. Since Judy's gone, she might. Yeah, I was spoiled, but again, Mom and Dad, myself, were a middle class family. They didn't make a lot of money, but they were thrifty and made every dollar count. So I definitely had everything I ever needed, and a lot of things that I wanted and received. So, but yeah. Being an only child, the only thought I have in now is I wish I had a brother or sister or both. And but anyway, that's the way it is, and I was very lucky to be reared by my parents. Greatly appreciate what did for me.
Where were you born?
Lafayette, Indiana. St. Elizabeth Hospital, and in those days there were more people that were born at home. But anyway, December 10th, 1941, and I was born cesarean, and 3 days after I was born, or 3 days before, was Pearl Harbor. And so I was supposed to be born on the 9th of December. Something went awry. So Dr. Holliday said we got to push it up a day. So my birthday was supposed to be on the 9th, but ended up the 10th, but that works.
Who was your best childhood friend?
Childhood, meaning like in grade school would be considered that?
Yeah, I'd say grade school.
We lived on 9th Street, and some neighborhoods, all your neighbors, and some you don't know very many. But I grew up as a little boy on 9th Street. Had several friends, but the one that comes to mind, sadly, just passed away a few days ago, Lee Kuipers. We were born the same day. We went to Christian school together, Jeff together, Purdue together, although each time we weren't with each other as much as in grade school. So I would say Lee Kuipers was definitely my best friend in grade school.
What did you and your friends do for fun when you were young?
Well, of course, it was a very different time. I would say in those days, there weren't as maybe there weren't as many opportunities, but what we had, we appreciated. Some were in sports, as they are today. Just got together with friends and would hang out. Movies, that was a big deal. There just weren't that many attractions to go to. But, gosh, what else? That's a few, you know. We kept busy, but, you know, just do what we felt doing at the point in time.
How was communication different when trying to reach friends than it is today? How much?
Yeah, you know, we're pretty well relegated to telephone as opposed to what we have now, the iPhone or whatever. Of course, the written word was very important then, but you know, that took a long time. So oftentimes we communicated just by being with each other, if you will. So I can't, those are the primary ones. I can't think of anything else.
Did you ever get in trouble as a child or teenager? And did you have a curfew, and what time was it?
Next question, please. I'll start at the beginning. Did I ever get in trouble when I was little?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that comes to mind, I don't think it's a major thing, but Mom and Dad were fairly strict on what movie we would go to. So, without their permission, and there were probably 5 or 6 movie houses in or down in Lafayette at that point in time. So I would find a way to go to a movie. So being in trouble is not a big deal. Again, as far did I steal something or did I what? I'm thinking in, can't think of it. But on Alabama Street, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and we would go up on the roof and throw eggs as, today it's not a big deal, but as cars went by around Halloween, and that, to us, that was a fun thing. So you're saying, what else did I really get in trouble? I don't want to come across as being one that didn't do some things that he didn't, because that's not true. But I'll leave it at that.
And did you have a curfew? Did your parents have a curfew?
Yeah, but it was liberal, and again, I don't think I would adhere to it. And school nights probably 10, weekends 11, up to a certain point. When I got a little older, then they actually didn't set a curfew. What I mean by that is in high school, they really didn't, and I didn't try to, do something that would make them set a curfew. No, I think they never said no to me unless they had a good reason. So when I would do things or ask to do, it's usually yes. Yeah.
Do you remember your first girlfriend?
I remember about my first 5 or 6. Interestingly enough, the first girlfriend I had lived on Greenbush Street, and my grandpa and grandma Vanderweilen, that would be my dad's mother and father, lived down there, and there was a couple houses from there, and that absolutely was, I remember her, and could say she's a friend on Facebook, but I won't. Judy, and I forget her last name. But definitely she would have been the first one. But then in grade school, as you guys know, you start getting a little older, even by the 7th and 8th grade, then it became a little more serious, and or at least you thought so at the time. So I didn't have a lot of girls. I don't want to misrepresent that, but had a few to make it interesting.
What was your first car?
It was I think it was a 49 Oldsmobile. think in the Oldsmobile in those days, maybe today, they had 98s and 88s. It was a little smaller, it was the 88s, but yeah, it was a very good car. Absolutely.
So what can you tell us about your college experience? Like, what did you study? Were you in any frats, baseball memories?
Well, initially, I went to the Dutch Reformed Church, and it was kind of expected by the parents and people who went to that church that their sons and daughters would probably want to go to Calvin College, which is in, shame on Michigan, can't think right now, Grand Rapids. So I did that, and believe it or not, initially I had thoughts of going into the ministry, and they had I could have done that. So I kind of started out with that. A couple of things changed. I was a baseball fan, or not, I guess you would call it. And the coach from Purdue called and said, I can use you next spring. So, and also at that time, I'm very serious in dating grandmother, Lynn. And so I did transfer back after the first semester. In terms of the academic part of it, I always wanted to be in recreation. So I did, that was my emphasis within the School of Physical Education. But that was to enable me to go into any number of things, hospital recreation, that's what I went into at Logansport State Hospital, municipal recreation, and I did as a director at the park for a number of years, armed forces recreation, on and on. Then the second go round, 25 years, well, I graduated in 65. In 90, we had sold our business, the Care Center, and we moved back to Lafayette, which I'm certainly grateful that we did. But I always, at that point, wanted to be a counselor. So I did get a master's in education with an emphasis on counseling. So I worked a while in Dean of Students' office, and then an area they call SPAN plan, which is really kind of like me. It would work mainly with adults who are coming back to school after being out of school for a number of years. I called them retreads, but anyway. But I enjoyed that, and then Doug was in the School of Restaurant and Hotel Management. I forget the whole name right now, but he got us interested. A fella had gone to class and they gave a talk on travel agencies, whatever. So Doug kind of persuaded Lynn and I to get into the travel business. So it was great. As it turned out, we were in travel for about 10 or 11 years. And then Lynn passed away, so at that point I kind of retired, which I would have been 60-ish.
You were recruited for baseball, professional baseball.
Yeah.
What team, and why did you choose to not continue with baseball?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind, the Milwaukee Braves, was probably the first one. I talked to a couple others when I was playing, mainly after high school at the Legion. There was another team I played for that played in Loeb, whatever. And quite honestly, the primary reason, and I always had dreams of, playing in the big league, who didn't, and thought at one point that I might be competitive in that. But the bottom line is when our first little boy, John, was killed in an accident, it just took it out of me, and I guess it made me grow up very fast, and I just didn't have the motivation. And my dad had died too, and so at that point I didn't follow through with it. I don't regret it today, but still, I think we all, if we had wish I had tried it, and whatever. But so it's kind of due to a life situation, and life goes on, but you...
How did you meet Lynn?
She I think I met her by way of, well, Grandpa McKibben, my dad, Uncle Haynes, had a fleet of trucks, coal company. Albert Krabbe had a coal company. In those days, there were 30-some coal companies. And Krabbe, I think, was the last one to go out in the 70s. But anyway, I basically just hanging out at the park. I met her. She went to a lot of the ball games, as did others. And I don't remember a particular first time, but you know, came naturally, and we actually dated 5 years before we got married.
And
anyway, it was a good thing.
When did you start dating? Like, when was that time? Do you remember, like, how old you were?
Yeah, I would say freshman, sophomore. And and so did Lynn. I dated other people, but at that point we actually dating more serious, and again, dated for 5 or 6 years before we got married. So I'd say freshman or sophomore year.
Could you describe Lynn for me? What was she like as a wife and mother?
Definitely a loving mother. She loved children. Very, very creative. She was. That's why, among other things, she enjoyed park and did a lot of painting. She loved her husband. She loved her son. And again, she definitely was very faith-filled. She mainly stayed at home most of my, when I lived with Mom and Dad. But she did work some, but I would say the important thing in her life, most important, would have been her family, her church, and what else? Anyway, I feel very fortunate to have, had her as a mother.
How many kids did you and Lynn have together, and what were their names?
We had 6 children in 8 years. We were married in 62. 63, Johnny, first child, little boy. Second was Joy, 65. Third was Jill, in 66. And Jeff was in, came on 67. Adam was in 71, and Douglas was 70. Maybe I got that out of the chronology wrong, but anyway, those were our children.
Do you remember the day you found out you were going to be a father? And how did that feel?
I do, and it felt, the first time around, and when you have a child, it doesn't relate to anyone who was born thereafter. I don't mean it that way, but the first time of anything tends to be more whatever. But how did I feel? Well, I felt that I was lucky, and appreciated the fact that we were going to start our family. Always wanted to have a big family, as did Lynn. And I just was gratitude that we were going to have a little boy or girl. It happened to be a boy. But anyway, felt very fortunate.
Can you describe Joy?
How would you describe Joy?
How would I describe Joy? Is this, this can be deleted if necessary.
Yeah.
Joy is, she was a good student. She enjoyed athletics and was pretty good at volleyball, basketball, etc. she definitely, I would say she's very assertive. If she had something she wanted, she went after it. Not in a bad way, but she definitely, I guess, was a goal setter, and she'd go after it and usually accomplish what she set out to do. Good daughter, meaning, you know, they, as were the other kids, but very lucky that they loved their parents and showed it.
Can you describe Jill?
Jill. Well, Jill was, I say, very smart. She went a little different path. And our family, and you can relate to that, it tended to be more of a sports-minded family. Not that anything else was, there's a lot of activities you can do, and it doesn't have to be sports. But she did go a little different direction, was in the band and very active. Again, about anything that Jill wanted to tackle, she could achieve. Again, she's very smart. Went to Purdue and then on to Indiana State. But yeah, a couple things. Again, very fortunate to be her father.
And can you describe Doug?
Let's see. Doug was very talented in terms of, I don't want to, kind of hate to rank that, but I'm saying he was very athletic. Again, he was good about any sport that he tackled, did very well. He's a neatnik, which I think he even same today on that. He's a good organizer, if you will. Again, he was always, you know, close to his mom and dad.
And then can you describe Adam?
Adam, here we go. Baby of the family. I don't know if birth order really has that much to do with, and you can relate to that too. Supposedly it does have some effect. Adam, what do I say? He was, again, gifted. He always wanted, at a rather early age, to go into acting, which he did in later life. He, again, like Doug, was very athletic, especially in football when he played. He was a very good wide out. Again, supported, loved his mother and father. Just kind of guy, if he wanted to do something, nothing was out of the question. I don't mean the wrong way, but I mean he very adventuresome. Maybe that's a good word.
Yeah.
And still is today, and that's good. You know, he gets a lot out of life, and he puts a lot into it.
What were Joy, Jill, Doug, and Adam like growing up? Did they fight a lot?
I would say yes, but the thing that I find out more as I get older and they're willing to share what happened, I find out probably a lot of the things it was kind of hidden, their mom and dad, so I'm saying, yeah, they did fight a lot, but I think they gave us a break by not making it that obvious, so didn't feel there was really a great problem. Now, they might answer that differently, but again, it seemed like they were, you know, behaved well, whatever, but definitely did some things and probably didn't always agree with each other.
Could you, I know it's on the spot, but think of any funny stories for each of them?
Boy.
Maybe embarrassing things they did, or anything like that?
We lived in Rensselaer, of course, 70 to 87. I guess the first thing that comes to mind, Adam, one day, for whatever the reason, didn't go far, but he didn't have his shoes or socks on. He went up to a neighbor's house, knocked on the door, and told, this really happened, and told this gal that he didn't have anything to eat. So, whatever. His mom and dad looked kind of bad, but it was one thing he did. What else? Again, he was always into something, never a boring day with Adam around, and that was good. Can't think of anything right offhand. I can't come up with a story right now, but he again was always busy doing things. Never felt life was boring. He was always, and he and Adam really were close enough in age that was probably a good thing. Joy. Yeah, she definitely was, I'd say, joyful, and also participated in sports. I wish I could think of things. I'm sure there are that I could give them a hard time on maybe what they did when they were growing up to not embarrass us, but to keep us
On your toes?
Yeah, exactly, on our toes. So kind of the same way. I don't want to put them all in the same mold because they weren't. Everyone's an individual and they have different things they want to pursue and accomplish, and so they were all in that spirit, did different things. But anyway.
Did you guys have many family traditions like we all have now?
Well, I guess the main thing, and yeah, I feel very grateful that we do have some traditions now. And I would say the main thing, and again, it's when my grandma and grandpa Vanderwell, it's my dad's parents, we went to the Dutch Reformed Church, and every Sunday after church, the aunts and uncles, cousins would go to grandma and grandpa Vanderwell's house. And we would have cheese and nothing great, cheese and crackers, something cold to drink, or coffee. They were older. But the point being, it happened every week. And so it became part, I guess, almost part of our lifestyle, and was a way to assure that the cousins and the uncles and aunts as well were communicating often. That was one. As a little boy, I remember my parents would drop me off at Grandma and Grandpa Vanderweilen's after we'd had the cheese, and I would stay there in the afternoon and normally take a nap, and Grandma Vanderweilen, I think, read Heidi to me about 10 times over the long haul. But anyway, it was Grandma and Grandpa, and I'd get up, and I remember Grandpa and I walking down to the tracks, which aren't existent now, on Greenbush, throw rocks, this kind, nothing fancy, but it all was important to us as we were, living it.
So you guys went on vacations often.
Yes.
Where have you gone overall, and what would you say is your favorite trip and your worst trip you've had?
Okay. Well, the vacation thing was the means to our end, I think, of, and I think it worked, trying to keep our family together. And I mean that by the things that were busy then, probably busier now, but it was one time, at least once a year, sometimes twice, that we would get out of Dodge, be together as a family, and go to any number of places. We were fortunate to be able to go to, in terms of all of us, I think we went to Florida, San Antonio, good grief, fishing up in Minnesota, any number of things. As far as my favorite, Lynn and I cruised a lot, in part because we were in travel, so it gave us an opportunity to travel more. I hate to put one thing as the best, but if I had to, they all had high points and low points, I guess. Probably a 2-week cruise to the Holy Land. So that, to me, it was very meaningful. But we, went on others that we liked too: Alaska, Norway, Western Europe. We're just very lucky to be able to do that. And when I see some of the grandkids now, it's great when they're able to travel, because I know we have a few. Well, I think Aspen is in Spain as we talk. Ivy, I think they were going to go with her grandparents to not Haiti. It's connected to Haiti.
The Dominican.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I'm right on that.
Mm-hmm. It's in a couple weeks.
But anyway, travel is a way, I think, to keep people together in a time that you don't have that many distractions. And so we always thought that was very important. Probably the worst one, and you kind of judge it on maybe how you feel or how the children felt. Again, our children are very close with the cousins, as I think you guys are today, and that's a good thing. But we decided one Christmas we were going to take a cruise. So we thought, without maybe thinking enough, children would love it, if you know what I'm saying. So I think the port of call, we left out of, I think, Miami. But the cruise, it didn't go badly, but the kids didn't have a very good time, and they said they would never take a cruise again or vacation, which didn't enable them to be with the cousins, because it meant that much to them. So that would be probably, we felt bad because we knew that they wish they were home. That's not a bad thing, really, but that's, what I'm saying.
And then how did it feel as a parent watching your children get married and start families of their own?
Fantastic. Again, first child, first one married, I'm trying to think. I think it might have been Jill. Jill and Dave, I think, in our family were the first ones married. Yeah, a whole new experience, and one that, it's a happy time. And then leads to, of course, grandchildren. It's all good. And eventually to great-grandchildren. That we'll put that on the bubble right now. But yeah, they were each very special, and just happy to see them grow up and fall in love with someone, and that's the way it's supposed to be, the circle of life.
What could you tell me that I would be surprised to learn about you?
About me? No, I mean, I feel you know me pretty well, which I'm saying is a good thing. I don't know if you would, I mean, I enjoyed athletics. I can't think of something that's going to surprise you. I'm trying to. Maybe I would, dang.
It's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, it is. Makes me think, and I think it's a good question. Maybe I can call a friend or something. Dang it, I'm sorry. But
No.
yeah, I think it's good that we feel we know each other. I think we're fairly close as a family. And, when things go awry, which they do in every family, I think we have each other's back, if you will. And it's really important. I don't know. I just feel that people, when I was very serious about being a minister, I didn't follow through with that, and I'm not regretting that I didn't. I don't know if I come across as hopefully not holier than thou, or that's not what I'm all about. I mean, I have faith in God, and I feel that's extremely important. To the point that maybe the most important thing as parents and grandparents we have is to do anything you can to help your children and grandchildren go to heaven, which, that's really maybe the most important thing we do, is give that up. Without turning people off, because you can do that too. Some people hammer the religion and I think drive people away, and it doesn't help.
What's the biggest change in the world from when you were growing up to now, in your opinion?
Yeah. I suppose, communication, of course. When we were growing up, now I don't even know if you remember when they had payphones all over the place, which if you're on vacation, whatever you use it. I remember when I was a little boy, they still had the thing, you'd go like this and you'd go through an operator. So anyway, communication, we had telephones were entirely different. Communication was not as much, I'm saying that the print media was a lot more important than it is now. And I don't know if people just took more time or whatever, but the communication was that way. Including the mail, which, is very slow by contrast to today. Some changes as you're living, you don't think that much about it as you're going through it.
And what's your favorite thing about being a grandparent?
Well, I mean, obviously, the opportunity to get to know your grandchildren, and that's kind of at times a challenge, again, because the world is a lot busier and people are coming and going, but I hope and pray that we're approaching it right, meaning we see each other enough, but we don't want to see each other, we don't want to love each other to death, if you know what I mean. Just feel very blessed that hopefully we'll have a couple grandchildren. More than that, great grandchildren. I hope, yeah.
What is the dream for your children and grandchildren?
Yeah, I guess always keeping in your mind that somehow you want to not forget to give back to your community. I mean, a lot of people, they have a good job, and that's great. They go through the motions, and that's all fine. But I think some people, by not giving back, if you will, to the community, and that can be done in any number of ways and based on your abilities. But so grandchildren to give to the community and to be part of the community. Hopefully, and that's not always easy to do, but have a passion for whatever, depending on what you might want to do in the world of work. And I know that can be a challenge for people, even when they go to school, it takes time. Be close to their family members, never lose track of that. A couple ideas. Yeah.
How do you feel about putting pineapple on pizza?
I've never tried it, and I love pineapple, so shame on me. I believe on putting almost anything on pizza, with one exception, and Dad liked it. He loves salt. He would put salt on ham, but it's something they put on pizza. It's a real salty item. Dang it, I can't think of it. With that exception, I say, try things out, Pineapple would be case in point. And I will. Yeah.
What type of music did you like best?
When you were growing up?
Probably growing up, in the 50s and 60s, music was quite a bit different, but I like that type music, be it Elvis or any number of that kind of music. But I've always been fond of country western music. I like all kinds of music, but I don't necessarily like a steady diet of it. I mean, I can listen to gospel a while and then now let's listen to something else. But again, I like music to be verified. Even in those days, and I have one now, not a lot of records, so the vinyl was a whole different ball game. And probably from the standpoint of it being clear and all that, you're going to hear, what do I want to say, on the record a scratch or whatever the case might be. But I thought that was part of the experience, which I think vinyl is coming back a little bit. So the big band era, would be part of that. Mainly the rock and roll, when we were in high school. And Elvis was the king. Everyone had their favorites, but he definitely was a good one.
What was your first job?
First job, I was in recreation in college, but that was, my first job was after college, was working in recreation as at Logan Sports State Hospital. But my first job, I mean not literally, would have been, I subbed carrying Journal Courier, and I did have a regular, you've probably never heard of it, it's a grit route, which is a newspaper that you only deliver once a week. So I was newspaper carrier. Man, I don't think as a small child or a young child, I would have to work up into high school. I worked at National Homes a couple of years, which maybe you remember. They built prefab houses and a lot of them years ago. I worked at Rush Metal. I worked hard, and that was down by Wabash Avenue. And again, I worked in the office at National Homes a year or two, doing various things. But as a boy, other than the newspaper, seems like my main activity was running around with.
And then if you can think of one right now, what is the funniest joke you know?
I guess one of the problems I have, I know a few and I tell them too often. So, I'll tell you one, a fella was at the golf course and he was watching this foursome. And that one guy was teeing off and he put a ball on the tee, a new ball. He hit it and it went into the woods. He did that a time or two after that, and each time, so he loses the ball. So the guy watching said, "Hey, I'll give you a tip, why don't you use an old ball?" He said, "I never had one." Think about that. That isn't that good, but it's from a golf thing. I think you get the
Yeah,
That's a good one.
the only other one which I tell, and again, is a couple guys were on the promenade deck. They were going to Hawaii. One guy says, "I've never been to Hawaii. How do you pronounce it? Is it Hawaii or Hawaii?" And the guy said, "It's Hawaii." And he said, "Well, thank you." And he said, "You're welcome." I know that. I don't, that's probably enough.
Yeah, those are good. Have you ever met someone famous, a celebrity?
Yeah. By met, I can say it's a short hello, glad to meet you kind of thing. I could throw out Kennedy, who's who he was a senator then. He came through Lafayette and was going against, oh, for crying out loud, probably know it, but he came through Lafayette. And he went out to CC. They had a dinner and he had a talk, but just went up afterward to introduce myself and say hello to him. Been close to a lot of people. I guess the ones that I enjoyed as much or more as some of the baseball stars, be it Mickey Mantle or Al Lopez, being a White Sox fan. So I met a lot of the high school people. Close to Reagan. Anyway, that's a few.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you?
Well, darn it, I know I probably have several. Maybe one is doing this tape, and I'm kidding. Depending on, how it comes across, but no, it's a great thing. I don't know. Probably the one thing I felt unable to do, and it was a little embarrassing, two things. One, we went skiing. The first time I went skiing, we go up to Michigan, enjoy, and the rest of the family went, and so I start off on the bunny hill, and I'm thinking, man, this is a piece of cake. It was terrible. I could not, and I think, in retrospect, I think I thought, in athletics sometimes, you're strong and you go at it. I think I overdid that. I think it's more of a balancing act and whatever, but I never caught on, and I never did it again. Should have. Learning to water ski, I thought was, first time I did, it was up in Lake Michigan, which is stupid because it's a lot harder than like Schaefer or Freeman or whatever the case might be. And I was up for a short spell, but I went down quickly, so I get the water skiing.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Okay. The internet is a great opportunity to communicate, but needs to be, but can be abused. I guess that's a sentence.
Yeah.
Who is the person that influenced your life the most?
Probably my parents. Around them the most as I was growing up. Yeah, I would say my parents.
Is there anything you regret not asking or telling your parents?
I think I got the job done with my mother, and I get bottom line, tell her I loved her. Some people go through a whole life and they don't say that to a mother, father, sibling, friend. But Dad died at 44, and at that point I was working at Logansport State Hospital. So the morning I went, I got a call from was contacted by my boss, and he said, you got to go home right away. So the bottom line, he died. We lived on Elmwood next to the fire station, and he had a heart attack and died. But I guess I always have regretted not saying that often enough. I think I did, but it's something so easy to do, and it's so important. So I regret not telling my dad more how much I loved him and how much he loved baseball. He was kind of a cheerleader in that regard. But but I did. When I say I caught up a little bit, Dad died in '62, 2 weeks before Lynn and I got married, and my mother in '76. So, difference in time that they died. So I thought that was important. Other things I regret, I'm sure just smoking to me is, I don't know why, if I didn't start it, I wouldn't have to stop it. I stopped it after that smart, after many, many years, but yeah, I regret starting.
What was the happiest moment of your life?
8 best days of my life. And you guys can probably know what I might say. The first 6 would have been our children when they were born, and nothing can top that. And I'm able to go in and see them being born, which is, recommend that to anyone. And my 2 marriages, to Lynn and Judy, they just had to be, the happiest days. There are other happy days, but that would be it.
What is your earliest memory?
I think we lived, my mom, dad, and myself, on 9th Street, big house, brick house going up, about halfway up the hill on 9th. But I had friends, and we took a bike, I remember this, and there was a drugstore up at 9th and Kossuth. I was probably, 5 or 6 years old, maybe not that old. So it sounds kind of weird, but we went up to the drugstore, and we were, all 3 of us were riding this bike. I'm in the middle. And we are at the point, we were almost directly across the street where you live, your house on 9th Street. So we crashed, and I had a compound fracture, was what happened. But the two friends that I was with said, wait, we'll come back. But they went on to I couldn't walk. They went on to get their candy and whatever. And then they came back and hauled me, matter of priorities, but hauled me back to 9th Street and then a hospital and whatever. But yeah, I honestly remember that happening. I'm not positive. I need to check that, how old I was. But anyway.
What are some of the most important lessons you feel you have learned over the course of your life?
One is to not cheat or steal or whatever, but I think through life you should be watchful of other people and how they have been successful depending on what. Don't lose sight of that, and it's good to use the strengths of other people and how that played out. I'm thinking of Jimmy D, wasn't it, who died of cancer. I think that's it. They have a cancer fund through ESPN, I think, every year. But it sounds not corny, but the fact of staying the course, never giving up. Everyone fails, but everyone can get back up and then go ahead of the last thing and just restart.
Some people say that they have had difficult or stressful experiences, but they have learned important lessons from them. Is that true for you? Can you give examples of what you've learned?
I guess, and I don't know, most people would say that, but I think times you learn the most difficult things that you learn through the most difficult experiences you had, and take away from that things that you can do to continue on. Life goes on no matter what happens. So, I automatically think of the death of our 2 children, and the fact that when that happens, and it happens to a lot of people, so I'm not saying that only because it does, and it comes in a lot of different ways. But you turn over and give up, not do anything, or you can go ahead, keep going, and there's always someone else to love and to help. Your other children, whatever. So I guess it's it's kind of that to make a mistake. Everyone does. Keep on keeping on. Keeping the faith, yeah.
What would you say you know now about living a happy and successful life that you didn't know when you were 20?
Well, each decade or each, I guess, role that you play, whether it be a father, spouse, grandparent. I mean, each of those has its great, great opportunity to live through them. You said again, Nina.
What would you say you know now about living a happy and successful life that you didn't know when you were 20?
Mainly, each segment of your life, you have to be active. You want to, again, stay active. Keep trying to do things to enhance your life, and more importantly, the life of others, is to keep on going, regardless of what happens, and get as much out of life as you can.
How would you like to be remembered?
Wow. The most important thing, or maybe that's another way of answering it, I hope he was a good father. He loved his children. He did some volunteer things in the community to try to make the community better. I guess just to try to be a good example for others. Try to not lose sight of that.